So I think you see something different, mainly the lighting. So I went and bought lights on Amazon because the picture was just way too dark. And the ones that I picked up were 15 bucks. They're El Cheapos just because why not? You know, like I don't know how this is going to go, but they're pretty darn bright for what I paid for. I still need a center light to come down from the top. I'm in the garage right now, so it doesn't really do as well. But these side-to-side lights are really, really good. It does cast some shadows, and once I get a downward-facing light right in the center, it'll knock all that out. I don't have to worry about that. But, so today, we're detailing. So you've painted it, you've, masked off the big details that you can, but there's just those tiny little details that you want to paint. All these tiny little details that you normally would not be able to pick out are now visible. So I did this with the blue. I've already gone and done all the blue that I want to do. Now we've got to pick out the other details. I'm going to show you on something simple, like the fist right here. Now the reason why I said detailing, yes, there's a lot of surface area right here, but towards this edge you want to keep it as crisp as possible. And you could tape this, you can, but I don't want to because I want to hand paint it. The biggest and most important thing you need to remember is clear coat your parts before the next step. As you remember, when I did the blue, I didn't do that. So I couldn't exactly just scrape off any excess or, whatnot. So I kind of had to touch up my areas. And this one I have not done yet. This one got clear this morning. But if you make mistakes, it'll wipe right off with the clear coat on there. So until it has time to dry. So make sure in between steps you are clear coating your stuff. So now I'm going to, and this is where this stuff comes in. You'll need it. So we'll set that back there. Now I'm going to use German Gray XF63 by Tamiya. And I'm using Tamiya's modeling brush, item 87017, and this is a very, very fine tip brush. It came with a cover and everything, and it had its own little, it looks like a calligraphy brush, to be honest. So, let's get to it. Let me get all the paint set up. We will need the thinner, and I'll show you what to do real quick, so I'll be right back. Now you gotta make sure you give the paints a good shake. I've already shaken this up. I was using it earlier today. But you want to get a stirry stick and stir it up. And even if you've done it already, you still want to stir it. And the reason why, because even after a short amount of time, it's going to clump up. So basically what I'll do is I'll use my stirry stick. I've got a hair on there. I'll use my stirry stick and I'll just dab a little bit of paint. It depends on how much you're using. If you've got a pipette, use that. But for as little paint as I'm actually using. Now if you're using the X20A, which I am, you want to thin your paint out. You always want to thin Tamiya paints out. I didn't believe this until I'd done it myself. Tamiya paints do not flow well unless you thin them. Alright, that should be good. Wipe the old stirry stick off. Put your lids back on before you do anything else because you'll make a mess. Now, take an old crappy brush, like hand brush right here. And I'm just going to take a little bit in here. Get off of there. Just a small amount. And that's what I'm going to use to mix it with. So again, caps on. Just kind of go over here and mix it. I may have got a little too thin, so I may end up having to add more paint. Yeah, I got it way too thin, but that's okay. Still does what it's supposed to. That's what we want. Rinse the crappy brush off. Let it dry. Now we're going to take our fine brush and we'll use the fist. Alright, move this out of the way. Dab your paint. Get a bunch on the brush. Just going to wipe off the excess. No, I didn't get it too thin. So when you're doing this, you can start off on the center here, but just make sure that you don't go crazy towards the edges, and just kind of go slow. And if you make mistakes, again, it's not a big deal. It's easily fixable. Just make sure you're trying to keep a steady hand as much as possible. And you'll still end up having to do this in 2 coats, which isn't a big deal. But just make sure you go slow and take your time. And when you get apart, get close to edges that you don't want paint on, be easy. Because number one thing that kills these things is you getting overexcited. It's like I tell my son, don't get too excited. You get too excited, you get yourself in trouble. Now it's going to be very difficult for me to do this, both because it's on camera and because I'm using an alligator stick. Or alligator clip to hold the piece, so I don't have as much control over it, but it's easily rectifiable. Just take your time. And if I can paint stuff like this on camera, you can darn sure do it, and I am by no means an expert. Something like this little recess right here. Can you see? Oh, I'm doing this off camera. Whoops. Fail. So just make sure again, I can't stress this enough, just take your time. Don't go crazy. And don't try and go over it before it's dry. So yeah, so that's that. Just keep at stuff like this. Oop, don't touch it. Just keep at stuff like this, and then remember, multiple coats, probably 2, depending on how thin or thick you've got your paint, and just take your time. And when I come back, we'll have everything done and we'll kind of talk about it. So all the pieces are done. Just letting them dry a little bit, and then I'm going to hit them with Pledge multi-surface wax. It's Future Clear. I'm not exactly sure what it's called at this point in time, but as you can see, the head cannons I picked out, and that they're not perfect. Again, I'm not trying to win any contests or anything like that, and it's gonna all be hidden or masked sort of by the gunk wash, and that will be what comes next. So once this stuff dries and the clear coat dries on there, which I'm not going to spray it, I'm just going to put the brush on the clear coat because I'm only going to clear the pieces that I've just painted. But it's small little details. Like I need to do a wet palette, and I'm going to do a video on that. But you can see little details that I've picked out on here, on the shield itself, the center part of the shield, and that'll all be masked. Now what I'm proud of is the thruster bells. So I did the German gray for the thruster bells, and then I heavily diluted or thinned some Tamiya XF7, the flat red, and that fits in there quite nice. And it'll darken up with the gunk wash and all that stuff, so I'm not worried about all that too much. But yeah, so if you take your time, you can do a lot better than I did. I am kind of rushing this, and I'm not really sure why I'm rushing this, but I kind of am. But yeah, so like you can pick out these details that were normally just kind of blended in before, and you can kind of see these details as well. They're very similar to what's on the shield, so I figured why not paint them the same color as what's on the shield. And then once I do the gunk wash, then we're going to start doing the, and I hope it works out, we're going to do the plasma effect, and I really, really hope it works out, especially in this area, because it'll look really cool. So that's it for now. I'm going to let all this stuff dry, clear coat it, and let that dry, and then in a couple of days we will we'll get back to it, and yeah, well, he'll be ready for a gunk wash. So look forward to that one. Bye.